Alright, so in this chapter, Izuku's final quirk is finally revealed. And of course, as we knew, it was going to be the second user of One For All's quirk. But it's not what we expected at all, or at least not what I expected, because whenever we saw the second user, he had like these cannons on his arms, and he looked similar to Bakugo, and that opened up a whole other can of worms, which is closed now. But it made us think, for the most part, that it was going to be some kind of like laser, energy, or projectile type of quirk, but it turns out that it's not that at all, because the name of his quirk is called Transmission, and its ability enables the user to shift the speed of anything he touches. So yeah, that's pretty cool and really powerful actually, because as we'll see in this chapter, there's crazy applications to this ability, and it's very versatile, and it becomes overpowered very fast. So at first, Izuku actually just uses this on himself, like that's just like the base application of it, because we see him touching his hand as he says transmission second, and then suddenly he's just way faster than what he originally was. And of course, he was already incredibly fast, because in this sequence, he is in fact in 100% of One For All. And of course, he could use this in combination with Fajin, the kinetic energy buildup and release quirk. And if he does all three together, then I assume he has to be surpassing the speed of Prime All Might at that point. I know that's a little taboo to say, especially to some of you, but considering that we're at the end of the series here, he has to surpass him in some regard at some point, right? But he winds up moving so fast that he instantly connects with All For One here, and he says second gear, and then he hits him again and says third gear. So this is incredible and problematic, but let's first talk about the incredibleness. So Izuku has already altered his own speed by touching himself, as we established, but once he's hitting All For One, after making impact with him, he is now altering All For One speed as well. So he's moving ultra fast, hitting All For One with the incredible strength that he has, but now All For One is going to move even faster than what he originally was after being touched by transmission. And he can incrementally increase the speed as well, because we see second gear, then third gear with a follow-up strike. And it ultimately ends with top gear, where we see him hitting All For One in a similar fashion that All Might hits the USJ Nomu in the anime. And he winds up sending him so incredibly fast at this point that even Mirio's like, the sound is delayed. So yeah, this is great actually. And I'm really surprised that Horikoshi was able to pull this off in the way that he did, because while an energy projectile or whatever type of quirk would have been cool, it would have been pretty cliche, because that's, you know, typically what it can come down to sooner or later with these shonen battle manga power-ups, of course. But this is subverting my expectations in a great way. Like, this is such a cool ability. Real quick, guys, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, DEKU'S. They specialize in designing and customizing phone cases to your liking. They have pre-made cases of all of the popular animes, including My Hero Academia, of course. But you can also get a custom phone case with your own design. And they have phone cases for all of the newer generation iPhones. So guys, check out DEKU'S. I'll have the link in the description. Thanks. But let's get into the issue with this, and it's the naming of it. Second gear, third gear. This is Luffy's thing. I mean, you don't even really have to be that much into One Piece to know that this is iconic to Luffy. And not only that, but at least when Luffy activates second gear and fourth gear, he alters his speed in a very similar way to Izuku here. So with that being said, I assume that Viz, the official translation of this on Sunday, is going to change it for sure, because if they don't, it's kind of a bad look for Horikoshi in my opinion. Because like I said, this is Luffy's thing, and I'm pretty sure the entire fandom is going to realize that immediately. I mean, more so the Japanese, and they're going to be like, you know, what are you doing? But anyway, after he hits him with the top gear and sends him like All Might sent the USJ Nomu, All For One's like, what just happened? This is completely different from that glow that he was using before, referring to Fajin. He's too fast. Don't tell me that. And then the second user interjects and he says, things are different this time around, All For One. And I guess this is All For One speaking, where he says a meta ability that enables the user to shift the speed of anything he touches. And I say that because he calls it a meta ability. This is what people originally called quirks, like once they first came around, like around 100 years ago or so. And that was the same time that the second user was around and fighting against All For One, because he was a part of that initial resistance against him. And this also explains why All For One got triggered by Bakugo and was reminded of the second user, because after Bakugo had activated his cluster ability, he essentially started to mimic transmission here, because his speed radically altered as well. When he allowed multiple explosions to come out of all of the pores on his body, he moved and accelerated in a similar way that Izuku is here, and he wound up hitting All For One in a similar fashion that reminded him of this quirk, and which led him to feel threatened. And also, speaking of the second user's quirk back in the day, going back to what we were saying about how he was wearing those gauntlets, makes me wonder, like, there has to be a reason why he was wearing those, right? And it's possible that they were just weapons that he used, like it was like a laser cannon or something like that. But it's also possible that now that we know the full extent of his ability, which is made more clear here than it was yesterday with the spoilers, it's possible that he was touching whatever was inside of those gauntlets and he was able to shoot them out of it way faster than what they typically would be. And I think that's probably what he was doing with those things. It's up in the air what he was firing out of them, of course, but I wouldn't be surprised at this point if Horikoshi just never touches on that, and we never really find out what he was doing with those. Then coming to the end of the chapter here, Izuku goes into gear shift overdrive, which I guess is the ultimate of this, possibly, because obviously it's going above top gear. And with the second user saying things are different this time around One For All, meaning that, you know, the second user probably couldn't go this far with the quirk, because he also told Izuku a couple chapters back that, like, hey, this quirk is different now because it's been strengthened by One For All. It wasn't as strong back in the day when I had it. And then in the final 2 pages here, we see Yoichi, the first user, come out, and he says, to put it into Izuku Midoriya's words, 100% becomes 120. And we see Izuku Detroit smash All For One, like right in the solar plexus, like beyond full power here, because he says 100% becomes 120. So this is amazing, going beyond his limits. And I guess this is a better way of showing what Izuku did to Muscular way back when he went against him, and we got the whole infamous 1,000,000% sequence. And at the time, of course, we knew that he wasn't literally using 1,000,000% of One For All. It was just a hyperbolic sequence to make it more exciting, but it just basically indicated that he was going above 100% of One For All at that point, which essentially he is doing here. But at this point, he's able to maintain it, and rather than just do it in one single strike, of course, with the assistance of the upgraded transmission quirk. So yeah, this is really exciting, and Izuku is, you know, near God level at this point, if not straight up on it, because as we know, All For One's quirks are being shut down by Monoma and Aizawa, and without them, he's just going to get destroyed by Izuku here, and it's definitely not going to be that easy. Like, something is going to happen, he's going to get his quirks back, or Izuku's going to run out of juice or something, because also that could play into the 5-minute time limit that the second user mentions in this chapter, where he says if we don't deal with him in the next 5 minutes, this world is doomed. So that could either mean that, you know, we're in the final sequence here, and this battle is only going to last 5 more minutes, 5 battle manga minutes, of course, which is like 5 hours in our reality. But it could also mean that Izuku might gas out in 5 minutes, and then we're going to go into this whole big sequence where Izuku has to dig deep again and come back and ultimately finish him off. But that's pretty much it for this one. Let me know what you guys think about the second user's quirk. Do you think it's cool? Do you think it's problematic that it's called Gears? And do you think Biz is going to change it? And do you think we're in like the final 10 chapters or so of the series at this point? Let me know. And if you like the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.